Good morning, everybody. This is Scott with PrepperCon, and I've got my good buddy over here, the prepared guy, Shane. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Shane. I'm the prepared guy, so I will my prepared guy, I guess, from now on.
Sweet. We are now officially hosting every Wednesday morning a prepper hour, a preparedness, a survivalist. Let's just get down to the basics of it, an emergency preparedness hour. You're going to hear a lot of terms. The first one is prepper, because that's what we are. You're also going to hear the term survivalist. We're going to talk about what that is and what a prepper is, and really all of it boils down to self-reliant. I mean, I've been doing this since I was 13, and I didn't even know I was a prepper until about 5 years ago. Shane, how long have you been doing that?
I'm kind of in the same boat as well, and I think the official title of this is the PrepperCon Radio, correct?
Right.
So we've got a lot of purposes, I guess, for this radio show is to, I guess, not only bring people's awareness about prepping, about self-reliance, like you say, and I think that's really more what it's about, is about self-reliance, rather than just calling it prepping or being preppers or survivalists, as you say.
Right. And a lot of people think that prepping is just, oh, I've got my guns, oh, I've got my food storage, oh, I've got a plan, and I'm an anarchy against the government, and that's not what it is at all.
Yeah, absolutely, and I put a lot of thought into this recently as well, because I don't necessarily consider myself a prepper, although technically, yes, I am, but it's more about self-reliance.
Exactly.
And it's more about a lifestyle, it's more a way of living. I think one thing you'll hear me say a lot is you have to look to the past to prepare for the future. And for me, it's about simplifying life. It's not about complicating my life with, like you say, getting food storage and guns and ammo and being critical of the government and everything else. It's about living a more simple life.
Exactly. It's being responsible for yourself, for what you're trying to accomplish on a day-to-day basis. I mean, we live in an on-demand society, and for most people, when we talk about the end of the world scenarios, which I think it's a lot of baloney for the most part, you'll hear, oh, on September 23rd, something's going to happen, and the whole world's going to come to an end. Oh, screeching halt. I think that's a lot of malarkey. It's a lot of bull, and the reality is preparedness is just an everyday way of life. It's, okay, I've got an extra change of clothes in the car. I've got food and water in the car in case I break down on the side of the road and have to wait 45 minutes to an hour for a tow truck.
Yeah, absolutely. And the truth is, our lives are different now than they used to be 100 years ago.
Absolutely.
And for thousands of years before that, everyone was self-sufficient, prepared. You could definitely call them preppers if you want to use that term. Although I think that term really only originated in, after, like you say, World War I, World War II, somewhere.
Yeah, the origin of the word that I found is really starts around World War II, and everyone starts getting home from World War II. People started using the term as for prepper or prepping as people who are self-reliant, trying to take care of their own needs. Some of it was a little bit living off grid, living completely off the land. That's more of the survivalist mindset. I'll talk about, let's define both of those real quick. Prepper is someone that's, by definition, stockpiling things in case of an emergency. Be that food, be those guns and ammunition, medical supplies, day-to-day living items like your deodorant. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't have a shortage of toilet paper in my house. That is the biggest emergency that's going to come across anybody's day.
And when you have 5 girls at home, like I do, 4 daughters, and of course my wife, toilet paper is a very essential part of prepping.
Absolutely, and that to me isn't prepping. That's common sense, and that's
Absolutely.
what most of prepping is. So to give you guys a little background on who I am. My name is Scott. I'm actually the founder of PrepperCon. My team and I, we had our first show last April, and thanks to the listeners here at K-Talk and everybody else throughout the state, we actually had people all over the nation show up for this event. We had almost 12,000 people come out to our first show. We were expecting 6,500. It blew us away. The response was phenomenal, and what we found was the most exciting thing was that everybody said they either learned something new or they found gear that they didn't know existed that all of a sudden they had to have. We had all the vendors on hand were really eager to help show people exactly why their products were beneficial. 54% of the people that came, they responded saying they came purely for the vendors. And so we wanted to create this event so it'd be more exciting, more fun, and really engage more audiences.
Absolutely, and I give you a bit of my background. Kind of like Scott said, he's been considers himself a prepper since he was 13. I've always been, I guess, I've been called MacGyver. I've been called lots of different nicknames that way. But I've always found myself wanting and having the desire to be prepared, even for the simple things in life. I call it not just being prepared, but being always prepared and always prepared. The two different maybe spellings that way. So it's not just about preparing for some disaster, which we have to be mindful here along the Wasatch Front, earthquakes in particular, but for everyday life.
Yeah, and listeners, I want you to get engaged. I mean, we're not only talking about preparedness. That's our primary focus here. But we want to hear what you guys do. What are the things that you guys are worried about going on? What are the things that you're preparing for? What are the things that you guys find most exciting in the world of preparedness and survivalist and emergency response? You know, it's funny because I get to talk to people all day, every day about this. I mean, that's part of my living now is I do this, and I also do real estate, and I'd like to do this full time and eventually get away from real estate so that I can just spend more time talking to people, helping people, getting them ready. And it's funny because a lot of the people I talk to, they don't know what they're preparing for. They're like, well, I don't know what I need to do. I don't know where I need to start. I just know that I need to. And for me, the first thing that I started preparing for was joblessness. You know, after I moved away from home, the first thought I had was, what happens if I lose my job? I was living in Utah, and my family was all from Colorado, and I had this really awesome job called manual labor, and it sucked. I was working 12, 15 hours a day doing construction, moving wood, running my own little,
But you got some skills.
Hammer and saw, and I learned a lot of skills, but it was grueling work. And so when I got sick, I didn't have medical insurance. I didn't have any safety net, and I ended up getting the flu, and they let me go because I had the flu for a week. I couldn't come to work. Well, that was my wake-up call. I mean, I've been doing this since I was 13. I was more into the survival side of things. I loved scouts. I loved building my own shelters. I loved creating snares and trying different things and trying to make knives and all the fun stuff that, a typical teenage boy is going to get into back in that time. But when I moved out to Utah and I lost that job, I was like, holy crap. I barely had enough money in the bank to last for a few more weeks. And I thought I was a prepper. I thought I was, mindful of what's going on, but I took a huge gamble and a huge risk to move out here and do everything from scratch. And I was jobless for about 3 weeks. Ran out of money. Thankfully, I didn't run out of food because I had about a month's supply on hand, but that wasn't enough. And so that's really woke me up to, okay, that's the worst disaster that's going to happen to me quickly.
Yeah, I think guys like both you and me, Scott, we are both, I guess you would call us entrepreneurs. I don't particularly like that term, but we, I guess, are not satisfied with the status quo.
Absolutely. Looks like we got a caller on line 3.
Great.
We're going to go ahead and bring him on here. Hello, caller. You're on. Who are we talking to?
This is Steve.
Hey, Steve. How you doing?
Well, how about yourself?
Doing good. What do you got going on today?
Is it going to be a regular thing on K-Talk?
Yes, every Wednesday morning we're going to be here from 9 to 10, and we're just going to be shooting the proverbial breeze, if you will, on preparedness and what's going on.
Yeah, keep in mind that this is our first show, our first time working the control boards, and so maybe a bit of a train wreck this morning, but we appreciate your patience with us and learning how to both do this and talk about prepping at the same time.
So good topic. Good show. I
Thank
had
you.
a couple of questions. As far as I've read a couple of books that we do and we don't have an imminent threat from fallout or nuclear attack. And if we do have a threat, what is your feelings on that? And if there is a threat in the future, what can we do to prepare to that? Prepare for that here in Utah, in this area, because that's something I've heard very, very little about as far as preparedness is concerned. Do we need to get iodine? What are some of the things that are needed to prepare for fallout if there's an attack on the on the West Coast, or even here locally if there was an attack? What do we need to do? Build shelters? What's your
Absolutely.
idea?
I appreciate your question. It's a kind of a heavy question for one of our first questions of the morning and of the show, but it absolutely is a concern that we need to be aware of. And I think the part that I am more aware of and more preparing for is I do take iodine every day, and I give it to my kids. And the reason I do is because not necessarily of imminent attack or anything like that, of nuclear attack or anything, but more of the increased radiation in the atmosphere from a lot of different sources. One could be from Fukushima, other from other nuclear power plants that are currently leaking around the country and around the world that are just not in the mainstream news. But if you do some searching out there, and that's one thing that I'll point out on a regular basis, is I won't necessarily get into the topics, talk about the details, but I'll point you to different news sources and to maybe different words, like the word Fukushima. If you haven't heard of that before, you should do some searching online. There's a lot of information about it. And so in general, our acceptable rate of nuclear radiation in the atmosphere has gone up, and the government has adjusted what they believe and what they feel is acceptable. They've adjusted it upwards. Whereas before, and I don't have the numbers right off my head, but it has more than doubled what the acceptable exposure rate in the atmosphere is. And so now it's acceptable, but it actually isn't. So if you're not, you should be taking some iodine, especially younger kids. They should be taking an iodine supplement to help protect themselves from radiation exposure. And you know, I have a little Geiger counter that I watch, and it's we're relatively safe out here in Utah. And there are online resources you can look and see what kind of radiation exposure that certain areas of the country are being exposed to. And I'll look that up, and I can let you know what that is.
And you can pick up the little radiation meters too. You can get, there's some simple ones you can get at pretty much any preparedness outlet. I know Emergency Essentials has a few different styles. You actually have them here at the radio station for free. So if you want one, come on down. That's news to me. That's awesome. I might just grab a few on my way out, just to add to my pack. But yeah, the reality is we don't know exactly what could happen, but we can prepare as best we can. And here's the thing: is as best we can. Don't go out and just build a shelter. If you've got resources and you've got expertise and you can do that, go ahead. By all means, that's up to you. But I'm not going to petition everyone else out there to go out and start building a bomb shelter in their backyard to worry about this type of thing. I like Shane's approach. Take small, everyday, conscious efforts to just kind of hedge yourself up and be prepared. You know, iodine tablets, iodine drops. Those are smart things to do just to help take care of your body in the first place.
Your tablets are for kind of a large-scale event if you have a lot of exposure. But by keeping a good iodine in your system, and you know, most salt is iodized, so you should take iodized salt. But also just taking, you know, a liquid supplement of iodine every day helps protect your thyroid from from absorbing any bad radiation.
Does that help to answer your question, Stephen?
Yes, it's very good advice. I hadn't even thought about that, and the tsunami in Japan and what the effects were when the power plant went down. But I do have a follow-up question, if I may, and that is, I don't hear a whole lot about.
Let me put you on hold. We're heading into our break right now. Can you stay on the line, and we'll come back to you as soon as we get back?
Okay, I'll try.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good job, guys.
I knew if we got rolling.
Yeah.
I like why you were explaining why people need iodine.
The Armory Shooting Range,
It's
located
like
at
normal,
248
like
West
layman people or
9210
whatever,
South
they're
in
like, why do
Sandy,
you need
is
iodine?
Utah's
So I'm
newest
glad that
and
you brought
largest
that up,
indoor
that
shooting range.
to
The
protect
Armory
iodine.
features 18 climate-controlled lanes with state-of-the-art target carriers and
It
air
was
systems.
really
The
fast.
Armory has a vast selection of rental guns for use on the range, including machine guns. The Armory's facility and firearm training programs are designed with your personal
So you can say,
safety and
hey, Steve, thanks
enjoyment
for
as
the
a
call.
priority.
If you want to
Training
call in and get
services
your
are offered,
questions in,
including classes,
here's the phone
gunsmithing,
numbers.
and a cutting-edge training
And that's,
simulator.
kind of how
Whether
to
you're a
say.
beginner or an experienced marksman,
Yes, this is
the
countdown
in-depth
now.
training, highly qualified instructors, and custom-designed
And then you can
facility
see right
will get you
here,
to where you want to
you
be as
have
a
another
shooter.
break after
Head on
that.
in to experience the newest indoor
this is
shooting
one that's
range in the
currently running. It's the
state,
green.
just off the
And it's
freeway
gonna
at
go that way,
248
and
West
then that, and then you're
9210
going
South
here,
in
you're
Sandy.
come back.
Online at
Did you hear how
armoryshootingrange.com
your
or
music
call
kinda came in a little bit hot?
801-447-1789.
It actually faded up underneath
The
you, but
Armory
we couldn't
Shooting
hear it
Range,
because
just off the
it was just
freeway at
getting loud.
248 58 West, 92 South in
I'm so
Sandy.
sorry I'm
I got that
coughing.
website here that I can.
Is your furnace giving you trouble?
Awesome.
Or perhaps you didn't get around to replacing that old AC unit
Okay,
this
so that's the
summer?
second
CTR
one.
Heating
Yeah.
and Air is the locally owned and operated HVAC company you can trust. Check them out on Angie's List. They're also Gephardt approved. They have years of experience that will assure your home is at perfect temperature all year round. Turn to the experts. CTR Heating and Air is an authorized dealer for
And
Carrier.
actually, and always kind of make sure that you're always kind of giving the number out, because nobody, they're driving down the road,
equipment, but they
and
also
they,
service most
some people have us on
manufacturer
speed
brands.
dial.
And CTR will
Those ones you'll
always
find
provide
that
you
you'll
with a
hear.
straightforward assessment
But then
of the
there's others
service
that are like,
required to
oh, I have
your
a
furnace
question, you
or
know.
AC unit running smoothly and efficiently. Get ready for the cold weather. Take advantage of CTR's early bird furnace tune-up special for the
So
low
you're doing
price of
great.
$39.
So to
Or
put them on
complete furnace
hold, you
diagnostic
don't
for
have to
only
take,
$59.
unless you're going to talk to
Free
them, you
with
don't
any
have to
repair.
turn your mic
Call
off.
today,
And in fact,
801-999-4220. That's
talk to them, they will still hear you over his
801-999-4220.
mic.
801-999-4220. Or visit them online at ctrheatingandair.com.
Welcome to Staples. How can I help you?
Hey, Staples guy, I need to promote my new business and do it on budget.
I can make that happen.
Can you print business cards?
Staples can print business cards, brochures, banners,
Pens?
pens, magnets,
doing
luggage
awesome.
tags,
Calendars?
calendars, sticky notes, lawn signs, and window decals.
What about foam?
Another tip
Color, red,
is if you're done with the
Red,
collar,
yellow.
Make
then
our
hang
budget
up
happen,
on
make
them
getting
before
noticed
they
happen.
hang up
Staples,
on you.
make
So
more
you don't
happen.
hear the
Now at
click.
Staples, get 40% off large banners,
So
posters,
you'll
and lawn
just
signs.
hang up on their line and just say, hey, thanks so much, Steve, for the call. That was great. You know,
combined with any
other offer. See
staples.com/signs
for
details.
The Honda Dream Garage sales event has great deals on almost everything we make, like generators.
it is kind of
backup
baptism by
power,
fire, but actually now
and
you'll get the feel of it, and then
Honda
it'll be
Odyssey
like
with rear view camera
cake for
standard.
you guys.
Backup
You'll have it.
power.
Totally down.
Sweet.
So go! You've got a garage to fill.
A smooth
During the
transition
Dream Garage
from
sales
topic
event,
to
get
topic.
0.9%
But if
APR
we have callers,
financing
do
to
that for
well-qualified
us.
buyers
That's
of a
good.
2015
Yeah.
Odyssey. Now, at your Honda dealer.
Well, and maybe not necessarily,
Terms and conditions
but
before
no
booking that
hesitation
room.
from
Camera doesn't
jumping.
display online info about conditions and objects behind vehicles. See your local
I
dealer
didn't
for
want to get too
financing
heavy today. I
details.
want
I kind of have to laugh. That is the funniest intro. Armageddon. Welcome back, everybody.
I picked that music.
Shane is our music aficionado. We lost Steven. Thank you so much for your call. But if you guys want to call in, the phone number to call in is 801-254-5855. Again, that's 801-254-5855. You can also catch us on Twitter right now. We're tweeting live. And you can follow us at KTKK. You can also follow us on Instagram at KTalk Radio. And of course, we're always available to talk on Facebook at KTalk K Utah. So we were talking about, well, I guess we were just talking about natural disasters, kind of what to do with radiation fallout, and what's to be expected. But let's talk, kind of back it down a little bit, and let's talk about everyday preparedness.
I've got that website here.
Oh,
It's
first let's
called
jump to that.
netc.com. It actually tracks radiation throughout the country. So very simple website. Take a look at it.
Perfect. Thank you, Shane. So let's talk everyday preparedness. What are you guys doing every day to make sure you're okay for a scenario? Do you have a 72-hour kit? Do you know what a 72-hour kit is? Or another term for it is a bug-out bag. You know, some people think that as soon as something happens, I got to get out of town. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you're doing to take care of your family in your own home, in your shelter. And we'll talk about both those theories, whether it's the bug out or the bug in or shelter in place theory. I'm a shelter in place kind of guy. Bug out's kind of my last resort. Okay, what do you do?
Agreed. I have what's called, I call, and other people call, a bug home bag, or maybe a bug in bag, but a bug home bag. So most of the time I find myself here, in Utah, not terribly far away from my home base. And if there's an emergency, I have the supplies. I need my car with a pack and whatever else I might need. That if I get to find myself stranded, that I can get home on foot. And that's one thing I teach my kids if they're going on a trip with their friends or whatever. I always say, and they laugh at me on a regular basis, I say, be prepared to walk home, wherever they might go.
You know, it's funny, Shane. Every time I see you outside of the radio, well, today's our first day on the radio. Huh. So every time I see Shane, if I'm wearing flip-flops, he busts my chops right away. And I'm like, hold on, I've got extra socks, extra shoes in the car. What he calls it, what did you call it again? Your
My bug home bag.
bug home bag. I call it my get home bag. I also have in my car, I have a bag with 96 hours worth of food and water for 3 people. Well, as a realtor, I feel like it's kind of my responsibility. If I get stranded with my clients, I need to keep them alive until I can sell my house, right? It just makes sense. But I may be an hour and a half drive time away from home. Well, that equates to a long day of walking if I get stranded, something happens. Heaven forbid. But the reality is no one bag is the right solution for every situation. And no bag right off the shelf is going to fit all of your needs either.
Absolutely. I completely agree with I do have a bit of a problem with 72-hour kits that you buy. If you put it together yourself, I think you're so much better off. But I think, as Scott was saying, I'm also a bug-in kind of guy. I'm not bugging out, and we can talk about that either now or in future weeks. But that's a huge topic, and I consider that the quintessential part of being a prepper or considering yourself a prepper. Whether you're going to bug in, whether you're going to bug out, if you got a bug out location, if you get your bug out bag, your bug in bag, your bug home bag, whatever.
Everybody has their own philosophy. Whenever you meet a prepper, they're usually not eager to tell you that they're a prepper. That's kind of the national rule of prepping. First rule is you don't talk about prepping. Second rule is pretty much the same as the first. It's you never talk about prepping. And that's because a lot of people think as a prepper that they become a target once they start telling people what they have or what they do. And sure, there's going to be bad guys that are always willing to take away from the people that have. Doesn't matter if you're a prepper or not. Doesn't matter if there's a disaster or not. Those people are still going to exist either way. The reality, though, is, for me, I broke that rule 3 years ago, and I've been breaking it ever since. Because I felt like not enough people were taking common, everyday measures to make sure that their family's safe from whatever could happen. Whether it is a catastrophic event, such as a huge magnitude earthquake here in Utah that affects a lot of people. If that does happen, goodbye power grid, goodbye water, goodbye sewer, goodbye gas. How are you going to survive? What are you going to do?
That's one thing I do on a regular basis. I'll throw that word out there when I'm talking to people. And some people do know what prepper means, what to be a prepper means, and some say, I've never heard the term before, which is a little surprising. But I can understand, especially after I jumped on Urban Dictionary here online and reading some of the what people have posted about prepper, and it's pretty concerning, actually, in my opinion. Where some are here's one comment that says where it links preppers to a strong paramilitary aspect. That you carry your bullets and batteries and water and everything, and it's there's definitely that aspect out there. But in general, that's not who we are.
Yeah, I think there's a spectrum. I talk to you about this all the time. There's a spectrum of prepping, and if you've watched the TV show Doomsday Preppers, and if you're familiar with that one at all, that is the complete end of one of the spectrum. And I would say that on a scale of 1 to 10, that's an 11, meaning paranoia.
It's definitely derogatory.
Absolutely derogatory. I think a prepper, the better, I guess, terminology is just prepared. The smart way to live was how our parents and grandparents did things. I mean, they had a garden. How many people do you know have a garden now and tend to it every day? How many people actually can their own food? It's a lot safer. It's pesticide free. Well, whatever you put on it, you know what's on it. It could be pesticide free if you're doing it pesticide free, but it's the most controlled substance you've got is your own food that you grow and you can yourself. When you go buy something at the store, you're always taking a risk. When you buy something at a farmer's market, you're taking a risk as well. Whatever you bring into your house is what you're going to eventually use or throw away if you don't use it. Or it's going to decay. I mean, you're going to have problems. But if you look back a few generations ago, we had all these skills and we had all these normal everyday practices that today are completely ignored by most of the population. Everyone's on demand. Oh, I can download movies. Yeah, I can order food. They're going to deliver it right to my door. I don't even have to put my clothes on. I can answer the door, grab my pizza, and go back to the TV.
But you can also look into the way we live that has changed over the decades. Living in a small apartment, you have no opportunity to have a garden. Living in our high-density cities, we've really handicapped ourselves that way.
Actually, I have a friend that lives in Denver. He actually does a lot of stuff with the local TV station there. He has an apartment, but he has a full garden. He has a vertical grow garden on his balcony. Mm-hmm. And during the winter, he puts a 7mm tarp that's just one of those painter tarps. around the outside of it and keeps the heat in, so that he's growing year round. And I thought at first when he started doing that, I'm like, that's kind of crazy, but cool. And now I'm like, holy smokes, that's amazing. He's got herbs, he's got carrots, and it's all in a vertical garden. So he's got basically a 20 by 20 garden in a space of about 2 feet by 2 feet that just happens to be 8 feet tall.
And it may not be enough to sustain him and his family in that little apartment, but at least he's learning how to do it.
Absolutely. And it's a really clever solution. And that's one of the things that I love about PrepperCon. Going to PrepperCon, we created the whole event because I love prepping, and I hadn't found an event that was exciting. And I go to this event, I created this event, and then I go to it, and I wish I could have just enjoyed it, but I was working the whole time, so it's mad, crazy chaos.
I tried to help him that way,
but it blew me away how many cool concepts have been brought back into light. That they took something that was
Not worrying about the IRS or how I'm going to support my family. My friends told me about TaxDebtPros.com, a local Utah full-service tax resolution company. The professionals at TaxDebtPros.com did a free case analysis and explained everything to me clearly in a language I can understand. They got right to work, and now I'm paying a small portion of what I did before. The best part is, I got my life and smile back.
Do you have IRS problems? The local experts at TaxDebtPros.com assist business owners and individuals in resolving tax issues. They can help reduce your tax debt and penalties, assist with IRS audits, stop wage garnishment, tax liens and levies, and prepare unfiled tax returns. Get help now. TaxDebtPros.com will completely handle your case with the IRS and take your stress away so you can start smiling again. Visit them online at TaxDebtPros.com or call them today, 801-878-0363 to schedule your free case analysis.
Hi, this is Alan Blood with Capital Financial Group. With home values increasing and low rates still available, now is the perfect time to refinance your home. Capital Financial Group, we have loan programs to fit your refinance needs, whether you want to pull cash out from your home, decrease your interest rate and monthly payment, or just reduce your loan to a 15-year payoff. We have programs that will help you refinance even if your income or credit is less than it used to be, or if you're underwater on your mortgage. Instead of getting lost in the shuffle of a big bank or paying high fees at a credit union, call us and we'll help you refinance with the best rates and lowest closing costs for you. You may even qualify for one of our no closing cost loans. Call me today, Alan Blood, at 801-298-5887 to start saving money on your mortgage now. 801-298-5887, NMLS number 3146.
Hi, I'm David Pickup, co-founder of the National Therapist Task Force. On Monday, October 26th, I'll be in Salt Lake City for a rare one-day conference featuring this nation's finest experts on the most critical moral issues of our day, including doctors and therapists whose jobs are at risk for speaking politically incorrect truths about the medical and social science research being covered up, legal experts who will show how activist judges are purposefully violating the Constitution, and pastors whose religious liberty has been violated, how they are fighting back and winning. You'll hear from ex-gays who are silenced, children of gay parents, and even testimonials of transgendered regret. Join us to learn the untold and censored stories. Together, we'll unite around a positive action plan to preserve marriage, family, and religious liberty. Register today online at k-talk.com. Tickets range from $20 to $50 for an action-packed day. That's k-talk.com.
All right, everybody, thank you for holding on with us. We're excited to be here. We've still got our caller on, and we almost skipped this question. So are you still there?
So yeah, so I've got my 2-year supply of honey. I'm just working on my 2-year supply of locusts now. Do you know where I can get some of those?
Are you serious, or?
No, if we have a plane, there should be plenty of those around, right?
I would imagine, yes.
They'll always be there when we don't need them. That's kind of the general rule of locusts.
Anyway, no, that's not my question. Right. So I have access to relatively cheap water containers. They're, I think, 250 gallons. Problem is, I cannot fit them inside my house, so they have to be outside somewhere. And my wife won't let me keep them in the garage.
That's where mine are. Mine are in my garage.
Yeah, then they are plastic, and I'm just afraid they'll freeze and break. So do you have any clever ideas on how we might be able to store those outside without digging a huge hole?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. And I've struggled with that same question as well, because I have those totes as well. I guess you're talking about the ones that are on pallets, have metal cage, and they're plastic totes. Those are
exactly.
a fantastic way to store water. They're inexpensive. Although my concern with them is, of course, you've got to make sure when you buy them, you've got to make sure that they've only had food products in them and not chemicals, because there are a lot of them that have chemicals in them, have had chemicals stored in them, and those are less expensive. And they are somewhat clear. Typically, you don't want to store your water in clear containers. So I have my totes in my garage. I've sacrificed my parking space, and I've covered that up with wood so that it doesn't get exposed to sunlight.
Right.
And other than that, outside, I think my next step will be, because I'm going to be adding more of those, I'm going to get a 20-foot shipping container and put it on the side of my house.
Wow.
And I'm going to cover that up with, and that's another thing I kind of do on the side, shipping containers, but I'm going to cover that up with cedar so it doesn't look like a shipping container, and that's where I'm going to have my water storage in there. And it's a lot much easier to control the climate in there. You know, because you have 250 gallons, they're not very easily going to freeze. That's a lot of water to freeze.
Yeah.
And it, obviously, since it's plastic, it will expand, and I don't think you'll have much concern, but I don't have any personal experience with that. But my next plan is to take them out of my garage and put them into either a shed or a container.
And the shed is a solution that a couple of guys I know do. They created 2 small sheds, and they insulated them. You know, a 250-gallon container is not going to freeze through. You will get some ice buildup in there, but it's not going to freeze solid. It's not going to burst the plastic. And what I've seen.
Another thing you can do to keep it from freezing, have a 100-watt light bulb in that shed. That alone will put off enough heat to keep it from freezing. Depending on, as long as your shed's insulated and it's not a terribly large shed, maybe have a couple of 100-watt lights going in there to keep that warm.
Okay.
Yeah, so
you're giving me some ideas. Maybe some hay bales too, just cover it in hay bales.
Hay bales is a great insulation. Absolutely a good idea.
Protect it from the sunlight as well.
And make sure you're rotating that water too. It's only good for a certain amount of time. And I'm not a water expert, but I know that there's stuff you can put in with your water to help keep it longer. But bacteria can grow. The biggest issue is the sunlight. So if you keep it out of the sunlight,
absolutely,
you're going to be the safest that way.
Yeah, typically your tap water has enough chlorine in it to keep it fresh for really a couple of years. Some will say 1 year. I just changed mine after 2 years. Took a nice big drink out of it. It tasted great. What I do, I put a little bit of lemon essential oils in it as well to kind of help protect flavor.
Okay, hey, those are some good ideas. I look forward to hearing from you guys in the future.
Well, thanks for your call.
Thank you so much. Keep listening.
You bet. Bye now.
Looks like we've got another call here.
All right, we got a new caller. What's your name?
Hi, this is Jackie.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks for calling in. What do you got today?
Well, a couple of things. We have found that even though I am not my brother's keeper, he is my brother. So therefore, we have moved to helping people get prepared. We do big group buys on all kinds of different things. And that has in turn provided us help in our own preparedness.
Awesome.
And in the process of doing so, we have learned several things that I would have never even considered. There are people out there concerned about going camping together, and they're all buying these tents. We go to a preparedness class down in Spring City every month. It's open to the public. A very qualified man gives it. And in this class, they were discussing living in tents and how everybody is buying these big elaborate tents and how high, I don't know how you call it, how tall they are. To walk into a tent, it's got to be at least 6 foot tall.
Right.
And people are going to be pitching these tents everywhere. And depending on where they're located, there could be a very big gust of wind come through. And what's going to happen when that gust of wind comes through is the tent's going to take off. Years ago, we used to sell dehydrated food storage, and we went to Park City area, and everybody was there with their little gazebo set up, you know, selling their wares and teaching people. And we left and came back the next day, and there was a gust of wind that had come down this canyon and took out all these tents, all these gazebos. They were gone. Some of them were clear down the road. Some holes were bent. It was just obliterated.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to have a tent, even a large family tent like what you're talking about. Although it is definitely a temporary shelter, in my opinion. There are concerns with security, being able to keep it secure, your family and your possessions secure. I think you definitely need to have a family tent in case you need to evacuate quickly. You need to bug out quickly. If there's some, a natural disaster like an earthquake and your house is destroyed, very important to have a good tent.
I think more important is to have the skills to be able to build a shelter. Because, like you said, wind's going to knock out a tent pretty quickly if it's not securely staked into the ground.
Well, can I give you a suggestion? What I learned in this class, where my conversation was leading to.
Absolutely.
They recommended, and these guys are tried and true. They get these products and they go out and use them, and it's experience that tells them this is what you need to do. So the one gentleman stood up and said that when he was younger, his family had something to do with sheep herding, and what they would do is they would make their tents so that they were like 4 foot off the ground, and then they would dig a trench that would go down into the ground, and you could walk down into the ground and still be able to stand up inside this tent. You would have some natural benches because of the ground that you didn't dig out, and they would have in one little corner an area where they could put on the ledges. I don't know if you can picture this, but on the ledges is where they would lay their sleeping, their cots or sleeping bags, whatnot.
If you've got a visual example of that, please feel free to hop on our Facebook page and share that link. I think a lot of listeners would like to see that. I'm a pretty visual guy, so it's easy for me to see that. I think a lot of people would struggle trying to identify what you're talking about.
But this is also exactly why we'd like to have people like yourself call in and give us other ideas and give our listeners other ideas and really what they can do. And if you have just a simple tent, maybe there's ways to make that tent more secure, last longer. I've seen putting a tent over a tent in case of heavy snowfall or heavy winds and so forth. So there's a lot of different things you can do out there.
Well, one other thing with the 55-gallon water barrels, dig a hole in the ground, and they become a root cellar.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things you can do with those, the 55-gallon as well as the large totes as well.
So where is your group on Facebook? What's it called?
So you can follow us on Facebook. It's just K-Talk Radio, so KTALK Radio. And you'll find us right there on Facebook. Feel free to throw your content up there. Follow us there. You can also follow us. The Prepared Guy is also on Facebook. And you can also follow PrepperCon on Facebook. All three of them, great resource. We're trying to share as much information out there as we can and get really a lot more involvement from our listeners as we possibly can. We've actually got another caller, so we're going to jump off with you and give them a chance to talk. But thank you so much for your call. Caller, thanks for calling in. You are on air. What's your name?
Larry.
Larry, thanks for calling in. What have you got for us today?
Oh, a bunch of stuff. Hey, when you dig the floor out in the tent, you're going to have to put a berm around the outside to keep the rain.
Absolutely.
And as far as latrines, if you have some bags of lime, it kills the smell and all that.
As well as charcoal from your fire pit as well. That's a great way to.
Yeah, the lime is really good though. It kills the germs and stuff.
Fantastic.
And there's also, you can also take 55-gallon drums, and there's plenty of information online that you can learn how to build your own septic system as well.
Or if you're big plastic, those barrels are going to bust. They're going to burst. You got to insulate them. The more water you got, the bigger volume, the more it's going to expand.
And basically these plans entail burying those in the ground. So
it may be 30 below zero or even 20 plus them,
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your call and your input. Appreciate it.
You have any other questions for us?
Well, I was going to tell you, all this prep doesn't do us any good if you don't have organization, because there's going to be marauding bands that are going to come in if you're out there by your lonesome. In a wilderness area, they're just going to overwhelm you.
That's a good point. That brings up the lone wolf.
Well, I did run into some, but
What's
I
that?
ran into somebody on the church prep committee. She's like, I don't know, a big shot in it, and she says that we're all going to be living in tents up in the plateaus on some
I'm going to
mountains.
put you on hold for just a minute.
She says if you stay here, you get killed.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern, and we'll definitely talk about that in future weeks. Security is, like Scott was saying, is the lone wolf versus the organized group, and I'm definitely not for being a lone wolf out when it comes down to
you could
survival.
just stay here. If you stayed here and had communications, you can be organized.
Absolutely. Yeah, the more
gonna be 30
people you
below
have
now.
on your side, the more people that you're working with on a day-to-day basis, the safer you're going to be. I mean, you just build up your community, and that's really what preparedness is about. It's strengthening your family, strengthening your community, and having a smart, organized plan to be able to respond to the disasters or the challenges that come your way.
And that's really where it comes down to being talking about bugging in or bugging out. And if you're bugging out, you better have a really good plan. You better be bugging out with others as well and have a place to go. Because being by yourself, you're not going to be safe, just like you're saying, caller.
All right, we're almost out of time. We got one more caller we're going to take. We're going to jump off
Thanks
with
for
you.
your call, appreciate it.
Thanks so much for your call. Thanks for calling in. You're on the air right now. What's your name?
My name's Karen. I was just wondering, where do you get those big water totes that you're talking about?
I find the best deal for those usually on KSL.
Yep.
Search KSL. Make sure you're getting the food grade ones only. Anything that's had a chemical, as the prepared guy said, anything that had chemicals is going to be very detrimental. You cannot clean those out enough to make them clean.
And sometimes you can go to places that you know that prepare food, that use those types, and buy them directly. But most of the time, yeah, KSL is going to be your best resource for both the 55-gallon drums as well as the larger 250-gallon totes.
And so you look up 250-gallon tote?
Yeah, just type in water storage tote, tote, 250-gallon. They'll pop up, and pretty much whatever you put in there.
In fact, if you want to, we'll make sure we put a post here online soon. Follow us on KTalk and on PrepperCon.com. We're going to make sure we'll put some of those resources up there for you. We are running out of time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your call.
And thanks everybody for calling in and making this our first show. I'm going to say somewhat successful.
Hang in there, guys. We'll be back next Wednesday, 9 a.m. In the meantime, keep prepping.
Hey Bob, how's business? Is the new website helping?
Not good. I can't figure out how to get the website finished.
How did you do it? It's easy. I called web.com. They built my website for free. Then they promoted it on all the search engines.
Like Google, Yahoo, and Bing?
Exactly.